The envelope was gone, and with it my entire world. 5 years of sweat, skipped meals, and sleepless nights vanished in a single gut-punching moment. Sarah stood frozen in her cramped apartment, staring at the empty drawer where she'd hidden her life savings. $20,000, scraped together from double shifts at the diner and freelance gigs, meant for her dream a small bakery where she could finally be her own boss. Her hands trembled as she rifled through the drawer again, as if the worn envelope might magically reappear. It didn't. Her heart sank, heavy with a sickening realization. Someone had been here. She'd always been cautious, maybe even paranoid. Growing up in a fractured family taught her that trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. Her mother had died when she was 10, leaving her with a stepfather, Carl, who treated her like an obligation, and a half-sister, Emily, who seemed to inherit all his affection. Sarah had learned early to fend for herself, to hide what mattered most. But now her worst fears had come true. The trail led her to Emily. Sweet, naive Emily, who at 19 still saw the world through rose-tinted glasses. Sarah found her in the park, sitting on a bench, her hands nervously twisting the strap of her backpack. "Emily," Sarah called, her voice sharp enough to cut through the autumn chill. Emily's head snapped up, her wide eyes betraying guilt before she even spoke. "I didn't mean to hurt you," Emily blurted, her voice quivering. "I found the envelope when I was looking for my old sketchbook in your apartment. I thought Dad needed it more." Sarah's blood ran cold. "You gave my money to Carl?" Her voice was low, dangerous, each word a shard of glass. Emily nodded, tears spilling over. "He said he was in trouble, Sarah. Real trouble. I couldn't just ignore him. Trouble. Of course. Carl always had an excuse: gambling debts, a sure-thing investment gone wrong, or some vague emergency he never fully explained. Sarah had stopped bailing him out years ago, cutting ties after he'd borrowed her college fund and never paid it back. But Emily was his golden child, the one who still believed his lies. "Where is he?" Sarah demanded. Emily hesitated, then muttered an address: a rundown motel on the edge of town. Sarah didn't wait for more excuses. She turned and stormed off, her anger a wildfire she couldn't contain. The motel smelled of stale cigarettes and regret. Carl was in room 12, sprawled in a chair like a king on a thrift store throne. His weathered face broke into a smirk when he saw Sarah. "Well, look who's here," he drawled. "Miss Independent herself." "Where's my money, Carl?" Sarah's voice was steel, but her hands shook. She hated how he still made her feel small, like the scared kid she'd been when he'd first moved into her mother's house. Carl leaned back, crossing his arms. "Emily gave it to me fair and square. Said it was a gift. You got a problem with that? Take it up with her." "A gift?" Sarah laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "That was my money, Carl. Every cent I earned while you sat on your ass pretending to be a father. Give it back. Now." He didn't flinch. "I don't have it anymore." Sarah's vision blurred with rage. "What do you mean you don't have it?" "Paid off the debt. Kept the wolves at bay." He shrugged, as if her life savings were pocket change. "You're young. You'll make more." She wanted to scream, to tear the room apart, but she forced herself to breathe. Losing control wouldn't get her money back. "You're lying," she said, stepping closer. "You always lie. But this time, I'm not letting you walk away." Carl's smirk faded, replaced by a flicker of unease. "What are you gonna do, huh? Call the cops?" "Go ahead. Emily'll tell him she gave it to me willingly. You got no proof it was yours." He was right, and it burned. Sarah hadn't trusted banks after watching her mother lose everything to hidden fees and bad loans. She'd kept her savings in cash, hidden in that drawer because it felt safer. Now that choice was her undoing. She left the motel with nothing but a gnawing ache in her chest. Back at her apartment, she found Emily waiting, her face puffy from crying. "Sarah, I'm so sorry," Emily whispered. "I didn't know it was that money. Dad said he'd pay it back, I swear." Sarah wanted to yell, to shake her sister until she understood the weight of what she'd done. But looking at Emily's tear-streaked face, she saw the girl who'd once braided her hair and shared her ice cream, the only piece of family she had left. "Why didn't you ask me?" Sarah said, her voice breaking. "Why didn't you trust me?" Emily sobbed. "I thought I was helping. Dad said." "Dad lies, Emily," Sarah snapped. He's always lied. He doesn't care about us. He never did. The words hung between them, heavy and final. Emily looked away, her shoulders shaking. For the first time, Sarah saw a crack in her sister's blind loyalty to Carl. But it wasn't enough to fix what was broken. Days turned into weeks and Sarah threw herself into a plan. She couldn't let Carl win, not this time. She started by talking to Emily, piecing together what had happened. Emily admitted she'd found the envelope while looking for her sketchbook, which Sarah had borrowed months ago. She'd recognized the cash as Sarah's but believed Carl's sob story about needing it to avoid eviction. Emily's guilt was palpable and Sarah used it, not cruelly, but to pull her sister to her side. Together, they confronted Carl again. This time Sarah was prepared. She'd spent sleepless nights researching legal options, talking to a friend who worked at a law firm. She didn't have proof the money was hers, but she had something better. Leverage. Carl, she said, standing in his motel room with Emily at her side, you've got two choices. Give me back my money or I drag you to small claims court. I've got Emily's testimony that she took it from my apartment without permission. Theft, Carl. That's what they'll call it. It was a bluff. Emily's involvement muddied the waters, but Carl didn't know that. His face paled, and for the first time Sarah saw fear in his eyes. You wouldn't, he muttered. Try me, Sarah shot back. Emily stood silent, her loyalty torn but leaning toward Sarah. Carl caved, but not entirely. He admitted he'd spent half the money but handed over the remaining 10,000, stuffed in a greasy paper bag. Take it and get out, he growled. You're no daughter of mine. The word stung, but Sarah didn't flinch. She took the bag, her hands steady now. I never was, she said and walked out, Emily trailing behind. Back home, Sarah counted the money, her heart heavy. 10,000 was better than nothing, but it wasn't enough to start her bakery. Still, it was a start. She looked at Emily, who sat on the couch, staring at her hands. I'm sorry, Sarah, Emily said again. I'll make it up to you. I promise. Sarah wanted to believe her, but trust was a fragile thing, and theirs was cracked. You want to make it right, she said. Start by seeing Carl for who he is. Stop letting him use you. Emily nodded, her eyes filled with a new kind of resolve. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a step. Sarah knew rebuilding their relationship would take time, just like rebuilding her savings. But she was no stranger to hard work. The weeks that followed were quiet but purposeful. Sarah picked up extra shifts, saved every penny, and even started teaching Emily how to manage money, hoping to protect her from Carl's manipulations. They talked more, laughed a little, and slowly began to mend the rift between them. Carl faded into the background, his hold over them weakening with every step they took together. Sarah's dream of the bakery still burned bright, but now it was joined by something else. A determination to show Emily what family could be, not a battleground, but a place of strength. She didn't have all the answers and the road ahead was long, but for the first time, she felt like she wasn't walking it alone. What would you do if someone you trusted betrayed you for someone else's gain? Was Sarah right to fight for her money, or should she have let it go for the sake of family? Share your thoughts on justice, loyalty, and the cost of forgiveness.